sorry, the red light came up on the thing, like, which means no battery. So I thought I'd change that real quickly. I do have to tell you guys, one of the great things about moving to this point where we can have our services without mask, or at least mask being an optional, is I can hear you guys sing. So it was like, we were doing sing a little louder. You guys were like, sing a little louder, And some people were like hitting their groove on while they were singing it. I'm like, this is great, this is awesome. So and my hands are now completely sore because you guys are getting excited. So I'm getting excited playing that thing. So I don't know what that just was. But I'm excited this morning. We're in a series that we've been doing called Ever Wonder Why? And here's what we're doing for this series is we're looking at what I would call the dark side of faith. We're familiar with the light side of faith. And the difference between the two is, and I'll tell you this, many times it's the light side of faith that grows churches. It really is. It's the light side of faith being we pray and things work out. Like things fall into our favor and things are good. But sometimes on the flip side of that light side of faith, there's a dark side where we have questions and we have doubts and we wonder. And really for this series, one of the people that I had in mind for this series that I really wanted to speak to is a person that's kind of at the end of the rope of their faith. The person who has heard all the cliches. The person that has been there and heard all the messages. But when it came to brass tacks and actually having it work in their lives, they find themselves struggling. So that's why we've asked questions about suffering and evil and why is that allowed to happen? Or we've asked questions last week. We talked about hell and why would a loving God create hell? We talked about that last week. And this week, we're going to dig into one that we might wrestle with, and that is, if God cares about me so much, then why didn't he answer my prayer? If God cares about me, or cares for me so much, then why didn't he answer my prayer? I remember I was in a message. I must have been in the 5th or 6th grade, and it was at my grandfather's church, and it was either my grandfather or my stepfather that was preaching that morning. And they were talking about in Ezekiel, in 1 Kings chapter 18, there's this guy named Elijah, and Elijah says, God, prove yourself. And when he says prove himself, then all of a sudden, like fire came down from heaven, and boom, God showed up big. So I'm thinking, wow, that's a miracle. So I prayed. I said, God, I don't need fire from heaven. I just want to see out of my other eye. So prove to me that you're God and help me to be able to see out of my other eye. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And I will say that it was a struggle with me and with my faith. I want to encourage you, if you have not done so, to make it a point to listen to the podcast from last week. Because I talk about this issue of the dark side of faith and this idea of wrestling. And we're going to hit some of those ideas today, but they're really developed on the podcast, so make sure that you listen to that from this week. But here's one of the things I said in the podcast, is I said, doubting God doesn't necessarily mean losing your faith. Or doubting God doesn't have to mean losing your faith. It doesn't have to mean that. That there is, again, that other side of wrestling and struggling. And I think, unfortunately, faith has become far more associated with answers. That when I have answers, then my faith grows. When I have answers, then my faith works out. When I have answers, then my faith comes together. But what if there's a flip side? Why can't questions be affiliated with faith as well? Questions where I don't have the answers to. Questions where I am trying to figure things out. And there's almost like this feel, I don't know about you, but there has been this feel, and I've had it in my own life, that with faith, I'm either in or I'm out. It's kind of like money. I have it or I don't, exactly. So faith, and it's weird because in my mind, I tell myself, like, Ken, it's okay. You're going to have doubts. You're going to have worries. You're going to have concerns. And you have to learn how to hand your worries over to God, but your doubts, your fears, you're going to have to work through that. But that's part of that faith process. But sometimes I don't allow myself to work through that process. Sometimes I shame myself by telling myself, Ken, you don't have enough faith. And I don't think I'm alone in that boat. I think mentally we all know that it's okay for us to struggle with doubts and work through. That's a part of our faith. But sometimes it's so easy to kick ourselves in the pants for having that doubt, for having those questions. And sometimes we pretend like we don't have them, like we're okay. But then our faith gets empty. And I think sometimes having those issues on the dark side of faith can really be helpful. Because there is an aspect that we do have to look at. We look at the Gospels and we see like the miracles, and the miracles are there, and the miracles work to prove who Jesus is. That's what the disciples intended it for, to show like, here are the miracles that Jesus did. Here is the way that Jesus worked. And then you look at those miracles and you say, wow, praise God for that. And some of us have had those miracles, maybe even experienced in our own lives. But did you know that there's a reason why a miracle is called a miracle as opposed to an everyday experience? A miracle is supposed to be what? A miracle. So the whole idea behind a miracle is the impossible worked out or the impossible happened. Well, in order for that to be the case, then it's not necessarily an everyday occurrence. And here's a truth, too, that we have to realize. For every blind person that Jesus healed in the Scriptures, there were hundreds, if not thousands, that he didn't. For every person that he raised from the dead, there were thousands, if not millions, that he didn't. Now, here's a question. For those that he didn't do that for, does that make him any less Jesus? No, it doesn't. But then we look at, well, why didn't you answer my prayer? And we think that, well, if you didn't answer my prayer, that must mean that you are less Jesus or that you are less God. So I think that this is something that we have to process through and be able to work through. And I know that there are certain scriptures that we look at, and then we take them and apply them to our lives, and we think, well, this must mean that I can go to God and talk about anything. For example, it says in John chapter 14, verses 13 and 14, you can ask for anything in my name, and I will do it, so that the Son can bring glory to the Father. Yes, ask for anything in my name, and I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. Tesla. I just Tesla Jesus. That's all I'm asking for. It could be used, just a Tesla. Right? And we look at that passage, and we may use it as a way to kind of justify asking for anything. Now, I want to make this really clear. This doesn't mean that we don't go to Jesus about anything, but it doesn't mean that he answers everything. One of the most dangerous things that we could do is to build our faith system on a single verse. We have to make sure that we look around that verse and see what's happening. Because in verse 12, for example, it says, chapter 14, verse 12, I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I am going to the Father. Then it says, ask for anything in my name. So you know what it's really talking about? It's really talking about ministry. It's not talking about Teslas or any other thing in our life. It's really talking about ministry. Ask for anything according to ministry, and I will do it. So we really have to be able to look at that. I think about this as well. When you were a kid, and you were around other kids who, let's just say, got what they wanted. Every time they asked for it, they got what they wanted. And as a result of that, their perspective of the world was skewed, right? Because they asked for it, and they always got it. They asked for it, and they always got it. Now, we have a word for that kid. What's that word? Spoiled. And someone even added to it, spoiled brat. Right? Spoiled brat. And I think if we believe that God is going to answer every prayer exactly the same way that we want it, you know what that's going to turn us into? Spoiled brats. It really is. So there are times where the answer to the prayer may be wait. And there may be other times where the answer to that prayer may be the one that we don't want to hear, but it's no. But it's no. Now, here's the thing that's important for us to think about, too, is if we were to say, life is a movie, and let's say that we have our theater back here and we have the marquee up top, life is a movie. Who's the star of the movie? Who's the star of the movie? Somebody's a star, but guess what? It's not us. We're not the star of this movie. The star of life is a movie. His name is God. The story of life is about him. You know what I am in the movie? I'm the extra. I'm the extra. I'm the guy pushing the hot dog cart in the background. I'm the extra. So in other words, the story of the movie doesn't revolve around me, it revolves around him. But I know what you're thinking. Well, Ken, if it's about him, if he answered my prayers, then it would make his story a little bit better. But the truth is, it doesn't always work out that way. And hold on to that thought, because there's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later that may make you think differently about answered prayer. So then what is the purpose of prayer? So I'm going to just talk really quickly about what the purpose of prayer isn't and what the purpose of prayer is. So here it is. The purpose of prayer isn't to get God to do my will. The purpose of prayer is to know God so I can do his will. So let's say that together. Ready? The purpose of prayer isn't to get God to do my will. The purpose of prayer is to know God so I can do his will. Do you see how that changes the story? Now it's not about me, it's about him, and it's about his work. It's about his ability. It's about his ability. And I know one of the challenges that we also wrestle with too is we look at God not answering prayer and we feel like God's not answering prayer because of our performance. I think about that Christmas song. You better watch out. You better not cry. I just totally messed that up. You better watch out. You better not cry. Oh, you better not pout. I'm telling you why. What is it? Santa Claus is coming. He sees you when you're, he knows when you are, he knows when you've been, so that's what we think. I need to be good so God will answer my prayer. I need to be good so I need to read the Bible. I need to go to church. I need to laugh at Ken's jokes so that God will answer my prayer. But then there's the flip side of that, right? What if we haven't been reading our Bible? What if we haven't been praying? And what if you hate my jokes? What if, which I think is impossible. Hey, watch yourself. But the truth is, that's what we do sometimes. Is we say, I haven't performed well, so therefore God doesn't answer my prayer. Or, maybe worse, is maybe we think my faith, I don't have enough faith, so God's not answering my prayers. Which again, faith becomes about my performance, doesn't it? I don't have enough faith, so God doesn't answer my prayer. And I think one of the cruelest things I've heard Christians say to someone else is maybe God's not answering your prayer because you don't have enough faith. So wait, you're saying my child is sick in the hospital, about to lose his life, because I don't have enough freaking faith? right? That's, man, I almost said something that you can't say in church. Like, can you say that's ballsy? Okay, thank you. You better, if you come to me and you say something like that to me, I'm losing my pastor card. You better be lucky I have faith, because I'd lay some healing hands on you. But that's what we do, is we turn faith into this commodity that if I have enough, then God's going to do what I want to do. But again, the purpose of faith isn't to get God to do my will. The purpose of faith is so that I can get to know God and be able to do his will. This brings us to this point that God is not a button to push, but a relationship to pursue. He's not a button to push, but a relationship to pursue. So, well, if that's the case, Ken, then why doesn't God answer my prayer? And I'll be honest with you. I will give you the most theologically sound answer that I can give you. I don't know. Because there are times that people come to me and they'll lay everything out before me and they'll, why doesn't God answer my prayer? And sometimes I feel pressured like, well, thus saith the Lord, But the truth is, there are times where I don't know why God's not answering your prayer. Now, I will say this. When you read through the scriptures, there are four times where it does let us know why God doesn't answer prayer. One example is that you have a broken relationship. If you have a broken relationship. Because that's how important your relationships are to God. It says this in Mark chapter 11, verses 24 and 25. I tell you, you can pray for anything, and if you believe that you received it, it will be yours. But when you are praying, first forgive anyone you are holding a grudge against, so that your Father in heaven will forgive your sins too. Your relationships matter to God. They do. And I can tell you now, like if I'm hanging out at my house and my kids are going at it, which my kids never do. But if my kids are going at it and then they turn and say, hey, Dad, can we have our friends over? No, I'm not going to bless that. You need to figure that out first. I'm not having your friends walk into a mess. You need to figure that out first. So it just kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, for God to work, my relationships do need to be right. They do. It goes on, and it says in Romans chapter 12, verses 14 through 18, bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. So what is that saying? Act in the opposite spirit. When people do you wrong, act in the opposite spirit. Now, that doesn't mean that you let them continue. Like, you act in the opposite spirit, but you also draw the line. Like, hey, I'm not going to punch you in the face, so there's a limit, but I'll still be kind. Be happy with those who are happy, and weep with those who weep. Walk on the path with others. Celebrate when other people celebrate. Don't let your jealousy get in the way, because we do that too, right? Someone else we've been working just as hard as someone else, or maybe even harder, someone else gets a promotion. So it's saying, celebrate with those who celebrate. Be happy for them. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think you know it all. What a great passage. Humble yourself. Hang out with others. Hang out with others, even those that you think might be less than you. Because you never know when life might teach you a lesson, and you end up less than them. You end up less than them. I did a wedding not too long ago, and the wedding coordinator had this snooty attitude. And you could tell that she just thought she was above everyone else. And the ceremony starts, and guess who forgot to give the wedding ring to the ring bearer? The wedding coordinator. So all of a sudden, she was back down to ground one. So you never know when God may humble us. And hopefully the wedding coordinator is not watching this message. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people and don't think you know it all. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. So our relationships matter to God. And if our relationships aren't right, then they hinder God's ability to work in our lives. That's how important relationships are to him. Another reason why God may not be answering our prayers is because we ask with the wrong motive. You ask with the wrong motive. It says in James chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, you want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You are jealous of what others have, but you can't get it. So you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. So we really do have to check ourselves. We really do have to check our motives. So that's another reason where our prayer might not be answered. Here's another reason, is you flat out don't believe God can do it. You flat out don't believe he can do it. Read these passages. I'm going to read these passages and you tell me what they have in common. Matthew 9:22. Jesus turned around and when he saw her, he said, "Daughter, be encouraged. Your faith has made you well." And the woman was healed at that moment. Matthew 9:29. Then he touched their eyes and said, "Because of your faith, it will happen." Matthew 15:28. "Dear woman," Jesus said to her, "your faith is great, your request is granted." And her daughter was instantly healed. Now, I want to make this really clear. Please make sure that you lean in for this. Is having faith does not guarantee that your miracle will happen. But not having faith will guarantee that it won't. So let me say that again. Having faith does not guarantee that your miracle will happen. But not having faith will guarantee that it won't. So there has to be that aspect where we choose to believe that God has the power to be able to do it. And here's another reason why God may not be answering our prayers is because God has a different plan. He has a different plan. It says this in Acts chapter 16, verses 6 to 8. Next, Paul and Silas traveled through the area of Phrygia and Galatia because the Holy Spirit had prevented them from preaching the word in the province of Asia at that time. Then, coming to the borders of Mysia, they headed north to the province of Bithynia. But again, the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them to go there. So instead, they went on through Mysia to the seaport of Troas. There's a lot of E's in that, isn't there? So think about it. It says they decided to go this way, but God said no, so they went this way. And then while they were going this way, God said no, so they went this way. God had a different plan. He had a different plan. So there may be times where God will not answer your prayer because God has a different plan. We were talking about this in our men's gathering, our men's group, a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about the prayers that we are thankful for that God didn't answer. And I'll tell you, in my case, I am so glad that there are prayers in my life that God didn't answer. If God didn't answer my prayers, I wouldn't have if God didn't answer my prayer, or if God had answered my prayer, sorry. If God had answered my prayer, I wouldn't have the incredible wife that I have now. And I wouldn't have the awesome children that I have now. And I wouldn't be pastor of this church, probably, or any church. Because it was my wife that said, "Hey, I think you're ready." She was the one that laid the foundation for that. So if God had answered my prayer, we wouldn't be in this position where we are right now, watching or sitting. We wouldn't. So I think it's good for us to go back and start to think about our lives and think about what are some prayers in my life that, boy, I'm glad that God didn't answer. I'm so glad that God didn't answer. So it's a good thing for us to take a moment and to be able to look at. Again, the purpose of prayer isn't to get God to do my will. The purpose of prayer is to know God so I can do his will. Now, I'll tell you, going back to relationship. That's what prayer is all about. Prayer isn't like, God, do this for me. 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 God, you didn't do that for me, so God, I don't want you. Again, how many of you would want to be in a relationship with someone that all they did was ask you for stuff? That all they did. You look, you see the caller ID. You're like, ghost? Because you know what they're about to do. They're about to do what? Ask you for something. Ask you for something. That's not what prayer is. You know what prayer is? Prayer is, like in my mind, I picture prayer being, I'm sitting at Starbucks, enjoying my chai latte, and God is sitting at the chair across from me, and I'm talking to him about life. That's prayer. Now, don't do that, though, because people at Starbucks may think you're kind of crazy, right? But that's what I picture in my mind. I picture walking through the park, and I'm just hanging out, and I'm looking around, and I'm just saying, oh, my goodness, God, look at what it is that you've done. This is so incredible, and God, and I just start to talk about my life and start talking about my kids, and we're just having this exchange, just dialoguing with him. That's when I picture prayer. That's what I believe prayer is. If we've just simply turned prayer into my coin that I put in to ask for stuff, then we're completely missing what prayer is all about and the beauty of what prayer can be. So I love it. I did a wedding in Santa Barbara yesterday. And so Tensai, my oldest daughter, was able to go with me. So we drove up on Friday and hung out on Friday. I did the rehearsal, came back, and we hung out some more, got some food and chit-chatted. And then, Saturday morning or Sunday morning, we got up and we were hanging out, and then we got dressed and everything and went and she was exceptionally beautiful at the wedding. People were like, "Oh, your daughter's beautiful." I was like, "I know." But it was really, but we hung out, and then we drove home. So we're talking about like a 2-hour drive, for us, but we're just hanging out and just chit-chatting, and it was just such an incredible time. And I love that. I love when I'm able to hang out with my kids and able to just chat and just talk about life with them. And I'm telling you, God would love that, to just hang out with you and just talk about life. That's the beauty of prayer, that you have an opportunity to have an audience with the Creator of the universe. And then I just wanted to wrap the message up by looking at the flip side. And I talked about this in the podcast, but I thought it was just so relevant to today that I wanted to talk about it some more today as well. And I just want to ask this simple question. Did you know that the greatest moment in human history happened because of unanswered prayer? Let me say that again. Did you know that the greatest moment in human history happened because of unanswered prayer? Or maybe even no to the question that was asked. It says in Matthew chapter 26, verse 39, he went on a little further, bowed down with his face to the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." God, take away the suffering. I'm about to go, and I'm about to be arrested. I'm about to be tortured and beaten. I'm going to have a crown of thorns pressed into my head and beaten into my head. I'm going to be flogged. I'm going to be placed upon a cross, and I'm going to be pierced. My arms, my wrists are going to be pierced. My feet are going to be pierced. Father, I am about to suffer. And how many of us have prayed that? We've prayed these prayers because we ourselves, we don't want to suffer as well. So we say, God, rescue me from my suffering. And that's what Jesus was asking. And what was the answer to that question? What was the answer to that prayer? It was no. It was a prayer that went unanswered. But because that prayer went unanswered, we have the greatest moment in human history where Jesus went to the cross on our behalf. And he rose again for us. If God answers our prayer, or if God answers his prayer, that moment doesn't happen. So maybe this is something for you to understand, that maybe the greatest moment in your life is about to happen on the other side of your suffering. Maybe there's something incredible that's about to happen. Maybe there's a revelation that you're about to come to. Maybe there's a change or a growth or a development that's about to happen. And more importantly, maybe someone else will be blessed on the other side of your suffering. So maybe the greatest moment in someone else's life may be because of the fact that you went through the suffering and you came out on the other side of it, and God moved through your life in such an incredible way. Maybe the greatest movement in your life could be the result of your prayer that goes unanswered, or God says no. There's a book in the Bible, a chapter in the Bible, Hebrews chapter 11. And what it does is it goes through and it starts giving a list of these guys and these women, and they do this, and they do this, and they do this, and all of these incredible things happen. It's called people call it the Faith Hall of Fame. But you go through and you read it, and it talks about all these things that happen because of people believing and trusting in God, and great miracles happen. But then, at the end of that chapter, it says this in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 39 through 40. All these people earned a good reputation because of their faith, yet none of them received all that God had promised. For God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. And before this, it talks about those people, how they were arrested, how they were beaten, how they were tortured, and maybe even some of them killed. They didn't have their prayers answered. And yet this passage says that the world was not worthy of them, that God had a perfection that was planned, and that perfection happened for us. But the perfection doesn't happen for us if the suffering doesn't happen for them. Now, this is the part where we go, okay, I don't want to suffer. And I get that. I don't want to suffer either. But think about it this way. If my suffering meant that eternity would change for the life of my kids, I'd suffer. Gladly. In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. If my suffering meant that because of what I went through, that it would draw you and others that are watching to come to know him, I'd be willing to go through it. That's the beauty of suffering. The absence of suffering doesn't always mean that God has done incredible. Sometimes the presence of suffering means that God is about to do something incredible. This is why in the scriptures it says things that are bonkers, like rejoice in my suffering. No. I rejoice when suffering's done. Why can I rejoice in my suffering? Because something incredible can happen on the other side of it. And the greatest moment of our lives could be the result of a prayer that went unanswered and the suffering that we went through. Father, I just pray that this morning really does inspire others and inspires us to really think about our prayer and what it is that ultimately we desire in our relationship with you. Father, I know that this isn't one of those messages that's easy to hear. I like the messages where you're going to rescue me from my suffering. I like the message where you're going to step in and do something really incredible. I like those messages. But to hear a message where I still may suffer and go through things, it's uncomfortable. But Father, you have something incredible planned. And ultimately, that is what we need to trust in. The trust in your presence. And so with that, Father, here's what this means. It means that, Father, I give you everything. I give you every element. I give you every piece of me. That, Lord, I come and I stand before you. Lord, I bring it all before you. I bring everything and nothing less. Because maybe, Father, in that I get this opportunity to find you in a way that I never thought imaginable, in a way that I never thought possible. Father, no doubt in this room right now and those who are watching on live stream, no doubt there is someone who is going through it right now. Lord, they've been praying about a pain that's in their bodies. They've been praying for a family member or a friend. They've been praying for their financial situation or circumstance. They've been praying for peace. They've been praying for healing. And it seems like, Father, the more that they pray, the more difficult it seems to get. So, Lord, I just pray that they're able to embrace your presence and the truth of you. And just to know, Father, that when they suffer, you suffer with them, and that you're going to walk through it with them. But at the end of the day, Lord, that suffering may be the door that opens to the incredible. And all these things we ask in your name. Amen.